I command you to heal yourself.
Welcome back to the Mustache Room. I'm your host, David Ben. I have Brussels sitting on my lap, my second dog, my 2-year-old, my crazy one. He's sitting on my lap for the intro. If you're not watching, he's cute. All right. On this episode, we give you an update on my vasectomy. How am I doing? Find out. We talk about the norovirus and how it took down my entire family for a couple days. Ouch. We also take a look at all-in-one grow bags. That's kind of the way things are headed. All-in-one grow bags are foolproof, especially if you're not doing a large amount of growing and harvesting. Mike Tyson threw his hat in the ring, and we'll check out what products he is endorsing. We get into the psilocybin potency testing. There is a new company that is offering at-home psilocybin potency testing, and we also look at some of the large-scale options. There's a lab in Oregon and what the process looks like. And Oprah finally delves into the realm of psychedelics. What does that mean for old people, for all of us? Find out. Finally, our Seahorse Academy psychedelics event is happening, and it is at Reverend's Brewing on March 29th. If you want to check it out, there's a bunch of flyers, emails, and stuff going around, but you can always email us at info@mustashebrands.com or info@seahorse.academy. Mustache Brands is the parent company. Thank you so much for your sponsoring. There's so many unofficial sponsors that I can't even rattle them off at this point, but thank you for being here with us. This is episode 29 of the Mustache Room. I wanted to start off by giving you guys an update on the vasectomy the last time we spoke, which wasn't that long ago. You're welcome. I was talking about my sore environment and what they did to me. It was all for a good cause. I still stand by that. But the swelling has gone away, the stitches are gone, the wound has repaired itself, and so I am good to go. So they speculated a couple weeks. That was spot on, and I went through some tough times in recovery, but we're all squared away. So you're welcome, world. We gave you one wonderful child, and that's it. I I wanted to comment on my health this past weekend. I took my daughter Becker to a birthday party. She had 3 birthday parties that weekend. And the first birthday party was great. It was on Saturday. Her mom took her. We share responsibilities, so it's not too much of an oh shit, this sucks, royal ass having a kid scenario. So she did the first birthday party, which was great. She played with her friends, sent me pictures. The second birthday party was my responsibility. That was on Sunday, and it was at a climbing gym. And she loves to, jump and run and climb and stuff. So I figured it'd be a great opportunity for her to get out some energy. And so we get there and they have pizza and we go get her shoes for the climbing wall. And she's like, Daddy, I'm not into this. I'm not feeling well. And so I said, hey, let's watch, see how this goes. And maybe you'll want to participate. And as we're sitting there watching, I look over and she starts vomiting and a lot of stuff is coming out. So I had a piece of pizza in my hand at the moment, and I had a plate in my hand, and I took the plate and I started catching the vomit as it was coming out of her mouth. It wasn't enough. It was all I could do to keep it from splattering all over the floor. I held the pizza in one hand as I was holding the vomit catching plate in the other. I don't know why I held onto that pizza, but it was way too long before I handed that off to another dad and said, hey, I don't need this piece of pizza. I need to focus on my daughter. So I was catching, it was running all down her wonderful dress that she was so proud of into the plate, onto the floor. And the dads there were really cool and trying to help me out, but everybody saw that it was a tough moment for all of us. So when she was done throwing up, I scurried her away to the family restroom, which thankfully there was a restroom where I could have the entire environment to myself. And she was covered in vomit, very upset, rightfully so. And I didn't have a change of clothes because I'm a dad. I don't think about stuff like that. That's mom's responsibility. Mom didn't pack it, not coming. So we're in the bathroom and I'm changing her clothes, and they had some towels in there. So the only thing I could think to do, other than wrapping her in a shower curtain, which just didn't seem right, was take one of the towels, wrap her in the towel, I couldn't figure out how to get the towel to tie in the front. Like some women can do that little front knot over. Well, she doesn't have any boobs. She's not four, but they kind of tie that front knot and it stays on forever. No, I tried tying it in the front knot and it just kept slipping down. So I carried her out of the bathroom with the vomity clothes wrapped in this towel and walked her back over to the party where I could tell she was embarrassed. So I wanted to get her out of there as quickly as possible. We're putting her vomity clothes in a bag. I asked one of the employees as they're begrudgingly scurrying over with their vomit bucket and mop if I could buy the towel. They're like, just keep the towel, please. Just take care of your daughter. So the girls asked if Becker could stay and play anyways while she was wrapped in a towel. I said, no, we'll see you another time. We got out of there and came home. She threw up more in the car. It was a tough day for Becker. And we got back home, we gave her some Tylenol, tried to, get her back to full health. And by the end of the day, she seemed like she'd moved past it. So weren't really sure if it was like food poisoning or what. So we were just happy to get out of that one alive. The third birthday party did not happen, needless to say. So the next day, which was Monday, we thought we were in the clear, we're good to go. And everything is fine until like 11 p.m. at night when the wifey gets up, Jill gets up in the middle of the night and starts vomiting just horrendously. You could hear it. You could hear her sighing like ah, between gasps and heaves. It was tough. And so I asked her if she needed anything. And initially she was like, no. So I just went back to bed. And then I woke up maybe a couple hours later and she was still vomiting. And so I said, hey, can I get you something? And she said, get me a anti-nausea medication, Zofran. So I went and I'm looking for the Zofran. There's a million prescriptions, like one pill from 15 years ago that probably should be thrown away. But I'm sifting through them. And as I'm sifting through them, I start to feel like I have to throw up. And Jill mentioned this as when I talked to her about it the next day, like maybe it was sympathy throw up. I thought, this can't be real. I'm just listening to this and it's seeping into my brain. But then it's coming. So Jill's on the toilet. She's vomiting, or it's coming out of both ends. We don't need to go any further. And so I barge into the bathroom and I use the sink. And then I use the shower. She's on the toilet. I'm in the shower. I'm in the sink. We're both basically in the midst of this puke release frenzy. And it was disgusting. So I don't want to use the bathtub ever because to me, the bathtub is sacred. I spend a lot of relaxing solitude, a lot of solitary moments in the bathtub that I cherish. And so I don't want to ruin that with any sort of puke remnants or just kill the juju. So sink, shower, toilet, all fair game. At one point, Jill was on the toilet throwing up into a towel. I won't go any further than that. So that was a terrible night. And we woke up the next day. Luckily, it was staggered enough to where she was somewhat functional in the morning and was able to get Becker to school. But I was not. I was like 3 or 4 hours behind her. And eventually the vomiting stopped, but it was all night, terrible. We looked into it. We're like, maybe we had food poisoning. I made some quesadillas. I don't normally cook. I'm not sure I'm fully trustworthy. It probably wasn't food poisoning because I think Becker ate some of the quesadillas after the initial episode. Nonetheless, we think it's norovirus, which I didn't know much about until I didn't even know how it was spelled, but it's norovirus, norovirus, and it is the leading cause of vomiting and diarrhea and foodborne illness in the U.S. People of all ages can get infected and sick. Proper hand washing is the best way to prevent getting and spreading the norovirus. So, not a good thing. Definitely not. It says in here, though, most people get better within 1 to 3 days. So, that's pretty commensurate with our experience, but they can still spread the virus for a few days after. So, our assumption is that Becker got the norovirus, passed it to us. It was just staggered by like 24 hours. And, she's younger. She got better quickest of all. It says here in this article, to avoid getting norovirus, do not eat raw or uncooked shellfish. And so shows some oysters. Don't have to worry about me eating oysters. Not interested. They've never looked or smelled or seemed appetizing in any way. If I want an aphrodisiac, I will consult other sources. So we're better now. My stomach still hurts from all the heaving. Jill's still suffering a little bit as well. She went to get one of those liquid IVs, not the packets, but actually the IV in your veins, and it made her feel a little bit better. But man, look out for that norovirus. Wash your hands. I'm the first person to ever tell you that. All right, last night my buddy Carl and I went to go see Rory Scovel, who is one of my favorite comics. He's awesome. Not like top tier in terms of recognition, but quality off the charts. Very creative, takes a lot of risks. Those of you that don't know, I used to do stand-up comedy. Huge fan, love to support it. We went to this place called the Buntport Theater. Cool. Never been there before. It was a really little theater, maybe like 30 seats or so. And he was just testing his new hour. So apparently he moved from LA to Denver. He used to do the same concept over there. It's a great idea. I mean, you don't have to go into a comedy club and, deal with those idiots. You just have a small, intimate crowd of people that found out because they follow you on Instagram or, in a select group of creatives. But it was awesome. Everybody loved it. He's super funny and brilliant, and I would go see him anywhere. But hopefully there'll be more of those shows popping up. So if you don't follow Rory Scovel on Instagram, please do so, because if you get a chance to go see him in a really small crowd testing out his new material, it's a gift. So please do that. All right, down to the nitty gritty of this podcast. The first thing that I want to talk about. So I went ahead and ordered something that I found out about online. It is called Mikeadelics, and the Mike in Mikeadelics, and if you're watching, you can see this. It is Mike Tyson. He is endorsing a mushroom grow process, specifically in this case, a mushroom grow bag. And it's kind of cool where they've evolved with mushroom cultivation. So, those of you that have listened, traditionally, if you want a a large yield, if you want a lot of mushrooms in one grow cycle, you pretty much have to build a monotub or something like that that can produce multiple flushes and is more robust and can sustain more than one growth cycle. But there's a lot of overhead and chaos and specific knowledge required to make that work. So what people have done is they said, hey, let's worry about a smaller footprint of growth and let's make it an all-in-one process. And if you listen to the episode of the podcast with Sam from Shroom Squatch, that's what he's doing. And it seems like everybody else is following suit. So the monotub is cool. It can still be done. But things like measuring pH level, which we'll talk about in a second, the uh, I'm losing my train of thought. The saturation, the water saturation, the field capacity, that's another thing you have to worry about. You have to worry about sterilization, all these other factors of your spawn and your substrate. Spawn being your grain, rye, millet, popcorn, oats, whatever you decide to use. The sterility, the saturation level of that, the sterility, the field saturation level of your substrate, which we'll talk about the specifics in a second, but that is what is going to feed your mushrooms and allow them to act the mycelium to propagate, to create the cake, to ultimately produce the fruiting bodies. So the spawn and the substrate, there's a lot of factors in there that have to be acknowledged to make sure that you have a successful growth cycle. So what they did with this bag is they put the spawn in there, they put the substrate in there, and they basically created an all-encompass mushroom growing environment in a grow bag, a normal, what is it, 3 pound, 5 pound grow bag. They put it all in there. So all you have to do is inject some sort of infant form of mushroom into the grow bag to propel the cycle. And so it's really cool. I haven't done it yet. I want to introduce it, go through the process, and kind of keep the listening audience abreast as we go through it. But I like the concept because, man, CVG, the recipe that you use to create the substrate, it's pretty basic, but there's way more than the three basic ingredients. And those three basic ingredients for CVG are cocoa coir, which is the hair of a coconut, vermiculite, and gypsum, which is plaster of Paris calcium sulfate. 60% cocoa coir, 30% vermiculite. Vermiculite is commonly used in gardening as a food source for your plants. The gypsum it's a white powdery plaster Paris stuff. That's kind of the recommended ratio. But the CVG, that's just the base to kind of give you a ballpark pH, a ballpark construct to help feed your mushrooms. You need to really measure the pH level. And if you don't know anything about what I'm talking about, the pH level is really important with any sort of science, really, but specifically growing, cultivating, it's really, really important. So the pH, the pH scale goes from 0 to 14, and the lower the pH, the more acidic, the higher the pH, the less acidic, more of a base and alkaline. So you want to hover for ideal mushroom cultivation, specifically the psilocybin mushroom. 7 is a good average. If you can 6.5 to 8 is the range, but 7 is a good sweet spot to try to maintain. And so when you initially create your CVG mixture, you want to measure the pH just to make sure that you're within that range. So there's a tool that you can get. I mean, there are paper little pH testing strips and other things. I'm not a big fan of things that I have to use and throw away. So you can get a reusable pH meter like this, where you essentially just stick the end in the soil and it has a digital readout. If you're listening, I'm just holding up this long pointy object with an LCD screen. So you can help measure your pH level. Now, the pH level can fluctuate over time too. So you need to balance it out. And so sorry, I muted it accidentally there. So with pH, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you can buffer it. So in order to increase the pH, if you're a little bit low, you can use uh, calcium carbonate, which is hydrated lime. You may be familiar with that if you've done gardening in the past. So hydrated lime, you can buy it at any growing store, Home Depot, online. That can increase the pH level, and then gypsum, the calcium sulfate, can be used to. I'm sorry, the lime can be used to lower the pH level, and the gypsum can be used to increase it, the calcium sulfate. So if you are concerned about the specifics there, where to buy that stuff, just go online and look at pH buffers, and it can tell you how to manage that. So one of the recommendations is when you get your substrate ready to go, if you're doing it outside of this all-in-one grow bag, which seems like the way to go. If you're doing it on your own, you want to initially measure your pH and then also continually measure the pH level just to see if you need to buffer it, send it a little bit lower, higher. Again, the neutral state 7 is where you would like to hover if you had a choice. All right, the all-in-one grow bags, though, let me just look at a couple other. So there's this Mikeadelics, which is by a company. Let's see, what's the parent company called here? Parent company is Advanced Mycology. So they've done a really good job. I mean, they say, hey, take this bag. The first step is to microwave your bag for 90 seconds to prepare the bag. I'm not exactly sure what that does. Maybe kill off some microorganisms or something. And then inject your syringe of, in this case, liquid culture, which is suspended mycelium in a sugary liquid. Take a syringe of that, inject the whole 10 cc's or however big the syringe is into the bag and propel the grow cycle. They don't recommend using spores. And much like Sam said with shroom squatch, the liquid culture is already on its way. It's already built up the mycelium. So it's much of a quicker growing process and less susceptible to initial contamination. So you microwave this bag, then you inject it with your culture, and then you wait. So, 6 to 8 weeks. The one thing that you can't control, so the bag pretty much controls everything except for light. So they have, if you use the bottom of, in this case, the container that it comes in, it shields the light at the bottom. So the mushrooms just grow up towards the light, but you still have to have some light. All right. So no matter what you think, you can't just put this in a closet with no light and make it work. There has to be some ambient light. It doesn't have to be direct, it can be indirect sunlight or something, but it has to have like 10 to 12 hours of light a day in order to work. So I highly recommend you check out these all-in-one grow bags. Another company is North Spore. They're a big player in the culinary and medicinal mushroom space. They've done the grow bags for quite some time, but usually they have the fully colonized mycelium. Since you can't do that with psilocybin, they give you everything but. So they call it Shroom Tech Inject and Grow. They have a self-healing injector port where you put your liquid culture syringe and voila. It's really cool. So North Space, Advanced Mycology, there's another company called Magic Bag, which is doing the same thing. But essentially, all they're doing is they're putting the spawn and the substrate, they're stacking them one on top of the other and creating a nice, sterile, well pH balanced, hydrated properly environment for you to grow your mushrooms. So check those out. Again, the pH levels are really important, but if you don't have to worry about it because you get the all in one grow bag, then you are ahead of the game. So that's kind of where everything's going. So I will be injecting the Mikeadelics all in one grow bag that I'm showing you here. I will be injecting that with some liquid culture and reporting back to you guys to let you know how it's going, if I run into any issues, because I think it's, I mean, that's if you're growing, if you're starting off growing, that's where you need to start. Don't worry about the monotubs and any of that stuff. The one caveat is you're not necessarily going to get multiple flushes out of these bags. I guess you can try to make it work, but these are not built for multiple flushes. They're built for one hearty flush. And if you want to transplant it to a tub or something and try to do multiple flushes, you can, but these are really meant for one flush. By flush, I mean a harvest, one grow cycle of mushrooms. Most monotubs can get you like six, even more sometimes, different flushes. And sometimes the flushes are more plentiful as you go along. Another thing to talk about, I have another purchase that I've made, and it is the psilocybin Q test, which is really the only home potency test that you can buy for testing the potency of your psilocybin mushrooms. So they give you a scale. It's pretty basic stuff. I mean, there are way more sophisticated ways to test the potency, strain, all that stuff of your mushrooms. This is the home way. And it wasn't that expensive. I think it was like 30 bucks for the test kit. But here's the scale. So you take, and I'll talk about more as I actually do this and show you the results. But you take the ground mushroom, dried mushroom, and you combine it with some of their liquid, and the liquid shows you a color. And based on the color, you match it up to the scale to show you the potency of your mushrooms. So it's based on 1 gram of mushrooms, and the scale goes from 0 milligrams at the bottom to 24 milligrams at the top. So the top is like 2 point, what is that? 2.4%. And the bottom would be obviously 0%. So that's the spectrum. And it's kind of hard to see. I mean, it's very basic stuff, but this is all I could find. So I want to see if this stuff matches up with what I thought I was consuming in terms of the amount of psilocybin that's been advertised. Could be all over the place because this is a very unregulated industry, but I want to see. So I got the psilocybin Q test. The name of the company is called, let's pull it up here. The name of the company is Miraculous Lab. They're based out of Denmark. And yeah, I mean, that's what they're doing. So I tried to watch a video, but it was in German, I think, and I'm not fluent in German. So I decided to bail. I'm just going to do this thing on my own and let you know how it goes. Okay. If you want to do something a little bit more industrial, let's say you have a mushroom growing business and you need to have some certification as to the potency, strains, yada, yada. There's a company that I found in Oregon called Rose City Labs that in Oregon, if you're not familiar, they decriminalized everything. So it's the the door has been pushed wide open for all substances. So you'll see a lot of laboratories and other people doing maybe what you would find controversial based out of Oregon. And so Rose City Laboratories, they do all kinds of psilocybin testing, and they'll test your fruiting bodies, tinctures, edibles, concentrates, extracts, whatever you have in any form. They use a special process called HPLC, and HPLC is it's a separation process. HPLC stands for. Let's see. What does it stand for? Oh, crap. I had it here. It is a way here. Let's just look it up. It is a way for you to separate all the components to accurately measure what each one of them, the composition for each one of them. It is called high performance liquid chromatography. It's a broad analytical chemistry technique separating compounds in a chemical mixture. So HPLC is the more industrial way to do this, but you're talking about some really expensive equipment. When you talk about chromatography, I mean, it says a process for separating components of the mixture, dissolving the substance in a mobile phase, which is then carried through um, to a stationary phase. I'm not going to go into the nerdy scientific details, but if you wanted to send something away to Rose City Labs, they charge for, let's see here, psilocybin potency, $265 for tests on various types of psilocybin. You can also do just fruiting body and concentrates for $132. Let's see, psilocybin species ID, $74. So this is not earth shattering pricing. It's very affordable. If you're concerned about things like, chaga, non-psychedelic mushrooms, they do the entire mushroom spectrum. So if you're selling mushroom tinctures, pills, things like that, you might need to go through some regulatory process or something to get your certification to sell it legally. But for me, it might be nice to know, hey, this is exactly the type of mushroom, even though somebody told me the spores were this, or here's how potent it is, even though I saw on a Reddit thread that it was this. Rose City Laboratories, HPLC, kind of cool stuff. You may have heard that Oprah had Michael Pollan, who we love on this podcast. He is so many different things. He's in the world of culinary. He's a botanist. He is an expert and enthusiast when it comes to psychedelics. And he's just a cool dude. You listen to him, his voice is just so soothing, and he's such a brilliant dude. He was on the Oprah podcast, which, full disclosure, never listened to the Oprah podcast, never considered listening to the Oprah podcast. I'm not her target demo. She knows that. And after I listened to this, I, we both confirmed our suspicions because she refers to it as a drug, which, first and foremost, this stuff, if used properly, is medicine. So we prefer not to call it a drug, but she calls it a drug. She refers to it in a very kind of elderly way. I won't get into any quotes or anything, but just kind of tiptoes around it the same way your mom would. Age, in this case, my mom is 76. The same way my mom would asking questions about, do you inject it between your toes? And are you going to go crazy? That kind of stuff. The answer is no in both cases. But it was cool to see Oprah at least broaching the subject of psychedelics, because for the black community specifically, psychedelics are just, a lot of the counselors can't relate to that demographic. So there's a fear element that comes into play, and it's just an underrepresented demographic. And so if Oprah can connect with the black audience, and I use black, I'm not a fan of African American because I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. It's black, and I'm not saying it in a derogatory way, but to me, black can be said as a descriptor. It doesn't have to go to the extent of African American, which just sounds like you're trying way too hard. So I apologize if that offends you, but it's just very literal. So the black community could be far better represented as far as psychedelics. And so if Oprah can strike a nerve, can reach out to that skeptical or underrepresented audience, then I think that's fantastic. Not only the black audience, but the aged audience, the mature audience, the elderly audience. They are super terrified of this stuff because back in the days it was hippies and the stuff with Charles Manson and LSD and people supposedly jumping off of buildings because they were going psychotic. That's kind of how old people feel about this stuff. So if Oprah can just open the gate a little bit so that some curiosity can be sparked and some conversations can be had, I think that's fantastic. But when I hear the word drugs, it just turns me off. When I hear magic, it turns me off because, dear God, this stuff is medicine in so many different ways. And I don't want to be a nerd about it, but yes, it is medicine. There you go. We are going to have our first psychedelic event under the umbrella of the Seahorse Academy. It's going to be, I'll pull up my flyer, which I did myself. Very proud of that. The event is going to be, man, where we go? The event is going to be at Reverence Brewery, which is in City Park West. If you live in Denver, if you live in another state and you don't feel like flying in, I apologize. But the event is Reverence Brewery, which is an awesome brewery right around the corner from where I live. They're partnering with a pho bar, pho and bar, which is right next to the Reverence Brewing location. There's going to be a gourmet mushroom pho roll paired with brown ale. That pairing is going to be a fantastic accompaniment to the education that's going to happen for 2 hours. It's going to be Saturday, March 29th from 10 to 12. My friend Sam, who is on the podcast, and myself, we're both going to be discussing we're both experts in the full subject matter, but we're going to break it up just so we can have a little bit of change of perspective. He's going to go more into the cultivation strains, the scientific aspect of it, and I'm going to do more of the dosing, the decriminalization, how to use it for therapy, music, the experiential stuff. And I think the mixture of us two, very different people, very different perspectives, but we share the same beliefs. I think it's going to be really useful for the audience. So on the flyer, I mentioned things like understanding entheogens, decriminalization, the legalities, psilocybin, what that means, potency, somatic, physiological effects, psychological effects, the home growing process, obtaining your liquid culture, spores, dosing, micro versus macro, set and setting, and then integration, using it with the bookends of a therapist, making sense of your experience, just trying to facilitate sustained, lasting change. So I think it's going to be an awesome event. We are just now selling tickets. It's going to be $50 a piece. Comes with the mushroom pho roll and the beer pairing, the knowledge. We're going to have a swag bag from Mustache Brands, our sponsor, with some really cool lifestyle products. But I do think it's another great step in the evolution of the Seahorse Academy. I want to see this thing be the education vehicle for families, for kids, for people using plant-based medicine, fungal medicine, trying to just enhance themselves and create a better community. And I think that's what we can do here. So I'm really, really optimistic about where this is going to go. If you're interested at all, check it out. You can check us out. Reverence Brewing Company has it on their social media. You can check us out, seahorse.academy, mustashebrands.com. You can find remnants there. You can email us if you can't find it. It's an Eventbrite site at the moment. So that is going to be quite a bit of fun. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. But be on the lookout, guys. I'm going to really try to get some interesting people on here so that you can listen to more than just my voice. I'm going to try to get Sam back on because he's such an interesting dude to talk about. See if I can get some other small business owners that play in this space. But thank you so much for being here. Stay well, stay physically well, stay mentally well, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.